Hello, everyone. Folks are filtering in, so I will talk very slowly so that everyone can get the messages. So my name is Amanda Jameson. My trail name is Zuul. I'm speaking to you from the occupied territories of the Ute, Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Sioux peoples, also known as Colorado's Front Range. I am myself a thru hiker, and I am a board member at large here at ALDHA-West, and I just so happen to be your facilitator for this evening. So thank you so much for joining us. With that, that's the last I'm going to say about myself. So I'd like to welcome you to this latest long distance, social long distancing online event presented by ALDHA-West, the American Long Distance Hiking Association West, that is. This is Thru Hiking While Black. We're going to give folks another few minutes to sort of filter in, because they're coming by ones and twos. All right, we are gonna do it. We're gonna move on. So just so all of you are aware, this event is going to likely last around an hour, perhaps a little longer. So feel free to, I hope that you have a beverage, whether hot or cold, maybe some snacks for the deliciousness factor, and to settle in to the conversation between Chardonnay and Ikuna that you are about to witness. We do have a few housekeeping items that we need to take care of before we actually sort of dive into the full conversation. So I want to thank you for your patience around that. So we will get that started. First, again, this is being presented by the American Long Distance Hiking Association West, also known as ALDHA-West. We are a 501c3 whose mission is to inspire, educate, and promote fellowship among long-distance hikers and those who support hiking. We do a lot of things here at ALDHA-West, master of all trades, as we say. So as an organization, we do things like offer hiking-related events, which we'll talk about in a second, and also attend hiking-related events. So events like PCT days, we like to show up to. Back in ye olden times when there was a kickoff for the Pacific Crest Trail, we liked to be at that event. We like to, where hikers are, we like to be as well. We also put on 5 rucks during the course of the year. So that includes Colorado, it includes California, Oregon, Washington, and Idaho. And essentially rucks are events where fledgling hikers or people who are interested in getting into long distance backpacking can come and learn more about it in a forum where we try to be open and welcoming and encourage lots of folks to ask questions. And it's a point of community for folks that have hiked before. So not only do you get to see other hikers that are in your area and sort of meet up with them and get to chat with them, you also have the opportunity to do a little bit of mentoring if that's what you're into, which we definitely encourage during those rucks. We also offer a gazette that has news about the hiking community, about the trails, as well as viewpoints from members based on either hikes that they've taken recently or just sort of ways that they're feeling about the trails or the trail communities. We definitely encourage members to offer articles that they've written, which our lovely Gazette editor, Hummingbird, will edit and slip into the Gazette, and that comes out quarterly. And then the thing that we are most known for, as you can see in our logo, is that we award the Triple Crown of Hiking. The Triple Crown of Hiking, for those of you who are new to long distance backpacking, are going to be the Appalachian Trail, or the AT, the Continental Divide Trail, or the CDT, and then the Pacific Crest Trail, or the PCT, and those go from east to west. We are a member-driven organization. We are currently actually looking for not only new members, but our board elections are in September at our virtual gathering. So we are looking for a treasurer and a several board members at large. And so if that's something that you're interested in, one of the things that you can do is sign up to become a member. All you have to do is go to the website that you see in front of you on your screen. It's just going to be www.aldhawest.org. We'd love you. We'd love it if you joined us. So please come and, you know, get a little bit of that community. Also want to take a moment to thank our webinar sponsors this evening, in no particular order. We have Canuck Outdoors, we have Mountain Laurel Designs, we have Buff, and we have Katabatic Gear. While ALDHA-West was definitely going to make this happen, whether or not we had sort of organizations sponsoring, the fact that these companies just decided to step up and take the burden off of a nonprofit for this particular webinar, which is always relevant, but definitely timely, is really important. So we definitely want to say thank you to each of these sponsors for showing up and supporting this conversation in a meaningful way. We really appreciate it. So just to chat a little bit about expectations before we get started. On the screen, you'll see essentially some guidelines for what this conversation is going to be, and then what this conversation is definitely not. So first and foremost, what this is a window into a semi-private conversation. So clearly, if Chardonnay and Ikuna were just talking, it would just be the two of them. I am here to facilitate, and all of you are watching. We are essentially going to be pretending that all of you are there so that you can get sort of the most honest answers that you can get from both Chardonnay and Ikuna. As such, this is unfortunately not the place to ask questions in the moment. You'll notice that there's no Q&A at the bottom of your screen, but you did have a chance to ask questions when you registered for this event. And most of the questions that will be asked this evening are either verbatim or derived from the questions that all of you asked. You wanted to know, we're gonna try to tell you. What this is a conversation about lived experience of these two Triple Crowners who we are so delighted to have with us. I can't even tell you. So you will also see that there is no option for you to chat this evening, either with the participants, with each other as attendees, or with me as the facilitator. We wanted to do this so that everyone could focus on the webinar itself, what our speakers were saying, rather than watching something inflammatory come up in the chat and feeling like very moved to respond to trolls. So eliminating distractions, we're not gonna have a chat this evening. Because this is about lived experience, this is likely to be a pretty passionate conversation. And we don't do tone policing around here. So please consider this a content warning. There may be strong language, including expletives, and we may or may not be using terms like white and black. That will probably come up. White fragility, white supremacy, other terms that may activate your nervous system, cause you to feel some feelings, all of that. So while we definitely encourage you to stay engaged throughout the conversation, even throughout the hard parts for you, please know that this conversation is indeed being recorded. And if you have to step away, that you can always come back and pick up where you left off by checking out the recording. We are trying to get the recording out as soon as possible. We are making a promise here and now that we will have the recording out no later than Saturday. So definitely look for that on our social channels, which are on Facebook, we're just facebook.com/ALDHA-West, no space to my understanding. And then on Instagram, which is where this will also be, we are also just at ALDHA-West. You can see it in our little logo down there. But no dash, don't put the dash in. That's not gonna help you. One more thing, yes. So last but not least, again, we want to, all of these different things are in place to not only increase your enjoyment, but to encourage the speakers to open up and answer with as much honesty as they feel comfortable with. But because of this, we definitely wanted to leave room for them to feel uncomfortable with a particular thing, whether, or a particular question, whether that's in the moment or just sort of like a little bit in advance. So at any point, the speakers are more than welcome to say in some fashion, I don't want to answer this question. And we will totally take no for an answer and we'll just move on. So with all of that said, if you're still here, thank you so much for being here. We are delighted to have you. And I am really delighted to introduce both Elsie Chardonnay Walker and Will Ikuna Robinson. Chardonnay is a thru hiker, cyclist, and adventurer and lover of wine. She's not your average thru hiker at 49 years old. She grew up in Flint, Michigan, always on the move, and currently resides in Northern California. She hiked the Pacific Crest Trail in 2015, the AT in 2016 and 2018, and the CDD in 2017, becoming the first African-American to complete the Triple Crown of hiking. African-American woman also, but also just African-American. She's currently a board member also at ALDHA-West. I'm delighted to have her as a compatriot in that, and is planning her big 5-0 adventure. So close, so close. Will Ikuna Robinson, he uses he, him pronouns. He is an Army vet who has used thru hiking as a tool to manage PTSD. He is the first known Black man to earn the Triple Crown of hiking, completing the Pacific Crest Trail in 2016 and 2017, the Appalachian Trail in 2018, and the Continental Divide Trail in 2019. Along the way, his journey became a mission not only for him to heal himself, but to share the healing power of nature with veterans, people of color, and everyone who doesn't fit the stereotype of being an outdoorsy person. Thank you so much for being here. I personally super appreciate it. I have so much respect for the both of you, and I'm just delighted to be in conversation with you today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for having us, for real.
So what brought the two of you to thru hiking?
For me, it was just a series of bizarre choices, I guess. I used to long distance cycle, and then when I moved from the Midwest to the West Coast, cycling was very hard to do without risking life and limb. So I needed another activity, and I was looking for hiking trails around the Southern California area, and stumbled upon the Pacific Crest Trail and a couple of blogs like Carrot Quinn and Heather Anderson, and reading their stories, it was exciting. And I was really moved and thought, hey, maybe that's something I could try, something I could do. And within a couple of months, I was on my way.
That's awesome. Ikuna?
For me, I found thru hiking as in the darkest point in my life. You know, I was dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and the symptoms that come along with it for more than a decade. And I was in a very, very dark place. And, you know, I knew I needed a drastic change. And Wild was on my TV while I was thinking this. And it reminded me of a guidebook that I had read while I was stationed in Iraq in 2003. And, you know, I did a little quick Google search, found out that this was the Pacific Crest Trail, and it was still thru hiked. And within a couple of weeks later, I was standing at the southern terminus. You know, I knew I needed that drastic change to get my life jump started, and I've been at it ever since.
That's awesome. Thank you both so much for sharing. For folks that are unfamiliar with thru hike, essentially that's where you start at one terminus and you go to the other terminus in one hiking year. Usually that's one season. Usually it's from around like April to October-ish, give or take, for most folks. Next question. In the trail community, and as we've already discovered, we often have trail names. So names that reflect an event, an action, a personality trait, something that happens or comes out on trail. And that marks differences between who we are on trail and who we are off trail. So Chardonnay and Ikuna, how did you get your trail names?
Oh, well, mine was actually not a trail name.
Okay.
So much, at least not given to me on trail. I had a nickname of Chardonnay when I was cycling, because I used to do the Register's annual Great Back Ride across Iowa. And on that ride, a lot of people drink beer in between, towns, and drinking beer for me and trying to ride 70 miles on a bike did not work. But Chardonnay did work. And it turns out, you can pack out Chardonnay quite easily on the trail also, which I do, pack it in and pack it out. So it's a name that has stuck, and it's, for me, who I am on trail is really who I am off trail. So many people off trail know me as Chardonnay also.
Nice.
And my trail name I actually received maybe 2 or 3 days into the Pacific Crest Trail in 2016. Was to ask a lot of questions like, it's a dry year. What are you going to do about water? It's like, yeah, we'll figure that out. I'm not worried about it. Well, the Sierra's got a ton of snow. What are you going to do when we get there? It's like, we have 702 miles to figure that out. I'm not going to worry about that. What about resupplies? It's like, we'll figure it out. I'm not worried about it. Finally, they're just like, you're not going to worry about anything, do you? It's like, I do that in my normal life, so I'm trying not to do it out here. I only want to worry about 2 things. Am I going in the right direction? And where's the next water? That's it. So they started calling me No Worries, and translated it to Hakuna Matata from The Lion King. And I've been Hakuna ever since.
Thanks so much for sharing. I love hearing trail name stories. So on a through hike, there are often moments where you feel good, you feel fully in your power, and you're taking up all the space that you need to exist and to breathe and to be. Can you set the scene and share one of those moments with us?
I guess I'll take the lead on this one. Chardonnay has went first twice. For me, it's every trail at the 100-mile mark. The 100-mile marks for me are such a special thing. I think some people, are more excited at the terminus at the end, of course. But for me, the 100-mile mark is my celebration. It's like, I'm in it. I'm here. I'm taking up space. I've already hiked 100 miles already. I've already probably created a trail family that accepts who I am, and it allows me to be me in this space. So the 100-mile mark is that point for me, every trail.
It's so celebratory. I love it.
For me, I think probably my super exciting moment was, on the PCT, I had never backpacked when I started more than like 2 days. So I really, really was struggling through the desert. And I remember 2 guys saying, I was like, they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm through hiking. At the time, didn't know people said like attempting a through hike. And I'm like, I'm going to be a through hiker. And they're like, well, we'll see if you can make it to Kennedy Meadows. And it motivated me, and I moved. And that moment when you get to Kennedy Meadows and you walk up there to the porch and everybody starts clapping for you, to look up and see those 2 guys and be like, yeah, I made it. I'm going to make it. And when I said I'm going to be a through hiker, I'm going to be a through hiker. And that was when I knew, hey, I could do this. I am going to do this.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. Oh, that's lovely. So you've both hiked all of the Triple Crown trails, which is amazing and dope. And I know that some people are very resistant to this question, but what are you looking at more trails next? What's next?
I have the North Country Trail slated for this year. but I postponed it to next year due to the pandemic. And I still have the Arizona Trail on my schedule for October, but that may go to the, back burner to next year too. So right now I'm just kind of hanging out until a van just drops in my yard, and then I can do that.
Dear van people, if you're listening. Chardonnay?
For me, I had big plans to celebrate my 50th by hiking the Camino, something I've wanted to do, since I started hiking. And unfortunately, again, with the whole pandemic issue, that's off the table. But I'm very lucky to currently be living in Tahoe. So right now I'm plotting my through hike of the Tahoe Rim Trail in the next month or so.
Nice. Yeah, it's really unfortunate that sort of the pandemic has derailed a lot of folks' plans, but really awesome to see that both of you are still thinking about it and still dreaming. What do you want people to know about you that has like nothing to do with through hiking or being outside? Just to get to know you.
I guess to get to know me is very simple. I am a lot more boring than people actually think I am. I know people see the Instagram and you think I'm out on adventures all the time and I'm always getting it in. Most of the time I'm in my house with my feet up watching some nonsense on Netflix or Amazon Prime. It's not adventure 24/7. It's a lot of dull moments outside of that panel, and that's what you probably need to know about me. It's like, I might be a little cool, but I am boring.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. It's hard, right? Like you see the Instagram and you get that FOMO, that fear of missing out. And so it's also nice to know that like people relax too.
Definitely.
Chardonnay.
I love to travel. I really do. And it's not really just about going places. For me, it's like the whole process, the planning and the flight and the getting there. And I just love going to these places and seeing stuff for myself. And you always see stuff on TV or you read about it in a book or something. And I think that when I go and see stuff for myself, it changes me and it expands my view. And I love it. I just love going places, even if it's just like to the next town over. You never know what you're going to see, something new.
Absolutely. That sense of discovery is really cool. That's super important. Thank you both for sharing. So to shift gears a little bit so we talked about a lot about sort of like the similarities that we all share on the trail. I want to sort of get into a little bit more of like the differences and experiences. So there's a tendency within the hiking community to romanticize the hiking community. So there's this thought or suggestion on trail that we're all one big inclusive family. Has this been your experience on trail?
For me, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think it's one big inclusive family. I think it's like anything else you do. If you're very lucky, you'll go out there and you'll find some people that you happen to click with. I think a lot of people sometimes are misled by reading blogs and things and people's fantastic stories about trail families and the friends that they made that last a lifetime, which is great if you have that experience. But I think that expectation might be a little high. I was very lucky to hike in a bubble of amazing people that maybe I hiked with and didn't see for another 100 miles and then for another 100 miles. But since we were all in that little, we all kind of started around the same time, we all knew each other. So, I mean, there's that. And that says a lot to have that sort of thing as you're moving along.
Yeah, for sure. Ikuna?
Yeah, and like Chardonnay was saying, I've been very lucky on these trails to be in bubbles with people who have been nothing but supportive and, have helped me come along as a thru hiker when I didn't know what I was doing. But outside of my bubbles, I have seen, you know, that we're not this big, happy family that we say we are all the time, you know, and it's not just for, you know, people who are new to hiking and never through hike before, to the BIPOC people that are treated a little differently outside of the bubbles, LGBTQ members. I mean, we like to pretend that we don't have any differences out there, but when we get out there and you're not around the people that you're normally hiking with, it does come up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your honesty. Um, Seeking more honesty, so many of the folks who, from the audience, who are self-identified BIPOC, so BIPOC, acronym for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, they specifically asked about safety on the trail. So in relation to your identity as Black folk, do you feel safe hiking long distance trails?
I feel safe because of the precautions I take. I carry a Garmin InReach for GPS communication. It allows me to text back and forth if I have a problem with family or if I need, you know, any type of assistance. Since my first hike was like just 2 weeks, so I didn't plan anything. But since then, I've done a lot more planning. You know, I've done my research. I've looked at hostels on the AT who may have their Confederate flags and may not be welcoming to people that look like me. You know, I did my research and find out, you know, don't go to this place because they have Obama hanging from a noose inside the bar. So, you know, I've done my research and I try to make sure I avoid situations where it could get pretty bad. Like I don't camp near roads that are close to towns because they usually get locals there. And I have experienced times where those locals don't like a person like me being out there taking space. So I say you can be safe. You just have to take all the necessary precautions, find your outs, your plan Bs, and everything else you think you should do to stay safe, do that and more.
Yeah, thank you for your honesty. Chardonnay?
Yeah, I think Ikuna hit the nail on the head. I don't feel unsafe because I take certain precautions, especially going out as a solo hiker, as a woman. You know, there are certain things I just had to prepare myself for. And before hiking, I did long distance biking trips, bike packing, I guess people want to call it, by myself, where I took, you know, certain little tricks. You know, you learn certain little tricks about where you're going to stay and the things you're going to do and where you're going to go. I try not to let fear keep me from going where I want to go, because I have a right to go where I want to go when I want to go. So for me, I have safety concerns in the city. And so I have to take safety when I'm in town. I also have to look at safety issues when I'm, you know, out on the trail. And that's just a reality of the world in which we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. And this will come up likely more in conversation that the conversation that we're having and the questions that are being asked. But for BIPOC who are in the audience, we will send out after the presentation a survey. And in that survey is a question about whether or not you would like to see BIPOC affinity groups for various trails, for getting into long distance backpacking, for that sort of thing. So if that's something that you're interested in, that's an option. So please take the survey. But to sort of continue on the safety track of the three trails, so the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, and the Pacific Crest Trail, did any particular one stand out to you as an especially charged or noticeably more relaxed experience?
I think the CDT for me was probably my most relaxed, and maybe that was because it was kind of like my third experience in long distance hiking. I felt more comfortable. I personally enjoy the fact that on the CDT, you are really out there. You're not that close to towns. You're not that close to people. And when you get that far out there, you know, the risk, I feel, goes down, because there's not a lot of people going that far out to, you know, create harm. I took my same precautions, but I didn't really feel unsafe. And I think that a lot of times I've been warned when I'm on trail, you know, you're going through West Virginia, be careful. In Idaho, be careful. But when I was in Idaho, I was really nervous about one town we went into because it was way off trail. It was a very tiny town. It's 4th of July. People are riding four-wheelers, and I got so tense. But the reality was, when we got to town, everybody there gave us free ice cream and gave us free camping, and the kids wanted to talk to us. And it was like, sometimes people just want to help you. They don't want to hurt you, and you have to put yourself out there, you know, to experience that.
Yeah, I definitely think that's one of the beautiful parts of the trail is just the random people that you meet that are very kind. I mean, it could certainly go the other way, but more often than not, kindness. Ikuna?
You know, I'm going to take this as which trails that I felt like I was able to put my guard down maybe a little bit. And the CDT was the one I could probably put my guard down a little bit, you know. As Chardonnay was saying, you're so remote on this trail, you know. A lot of the times you're not going to see day hikers. I mean, for me, I rarely saw another through hiker. So the only interactions I really had were in towns. And a lot of the towns in the southern half of the CDT, you know, you can see that their best days, you know, are been gone. So they had all kind of other things to worry about than this smelly, dirty black hiker coming into town. You know, I mean, some of the communities were infested by meth, and those were big problems for them. So they didn't worry about us as much. The one that was most charged for me, without question, was the AT. And, you know, I know for some people listening in, you probably think, yeah, no kidding, because the trail starts in the south, but it's not just the south of the AT. It goes from south all the way into your last point in Bangor, Maine. But that was the place where I was on high alert all the time.
Sort of as a follow-up to that, would you, since both of you felt more comfortable in the CDT, would you recommend the CDT as like a starter trail for somebody who hadn't hiked or backpacked before? Or hadn't done a long trail before?
Not necessarily, no.
No, not at all.
So for folks that are watching, the CDT is, as they were saying, much more remote. It's a lot more rugged. There's it's not entirely trail in all the sections. So just wanted to sort of clarify that for folks. Just gonna dive right into this next question. Did you feel like you had to, at any point, tolerate racism on trail and that can mean microaggressions like backhanded compliments to more sort of pointed comments or actions that questioned your humanity? Did you feel like you had to tolerate those in order to be safe at any point?
You know, for myself, unfortunately, I feel like I had to at certain points in times. When you're in a back country and there is nothing around that can save you if you're in a particular situation, and you run into people who have a problem with you taking space, and they may have this dirty comment or they may have microaggressions, you're not really in a position to be able to do anything about it. When you're out around, say, the AT, where you have so many gaps, you're going to see locals. There's no way around that. They know this area way better than you do. So at times, you may want to say something, but you don't feel like it's the safe option to say something. You don't want to be thinking 10 miles down, I'm going to camp, and then this local person is going to show up and take out their frustration on me because of what I did say. But, you know, I had to learn that it's a balancing act, because so many people in the outdoors on these long distance trails don't get a lot of interaction with Black thru hikers. They base how they interact with me. That's going to set the tone for the next person that they see. So in a sense, what you have to do is you have to watch what you say, but at the same time, not taking too much shit, because if you do, then the next person is going to get it. You know, so it's a balancing act.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'll ask that in a minute. Chardonnay, would you like to speak to this one?
Yeah, I think Ikuna hit the nail on the head. You have to yeah, you have to balance what you say and how you say it at times when you're out there, when you're putting yourself in those spaces. I mean, and you also have to use those moments as teaching moments also. I mean, when I was on the AT, I had a lady who at the shelter said I'm the first colored girl she'd ever seen on the trail. And, you know, my knee-jerk reaction was, but, you know, I just kind of let it settle. And that evening when we all sat down at the picnic table to talk, we talked. And turns out she is from Mississippi, where my family is from. And we got to talking. She knew people who lived in the same neighborhood that my sister lived in. And once we connected on that level, then I had the conversation with her that for me, I would prefer that someone use the term African American or Black instead of colored. And she said to me, darling, I didn't mean anything about that, by that, you know, and I think that she really didn't. That's just the world that she came from. And I think it was a moment where we got to see each other and hear each other. And sometimes you have to wait for the moment to discuss things with people once you get to know them and once they get to know you. And that opens doors for them and it opens doors for you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely this feeling as a hiker of color on the long trails to that like everything that you say and do is going to sort of affect the people that come after you, and that's something that I feel like a lot of white hikers don't really experience. And so I thank you both for talking about this. It's really important. So now we've talked about the backcountry enough. Let's sort of like move it a little, still about hiking, but a little more into the front country. So in the wake of the systemic racism being sort of laid bare for all to see, even the folks that want to close their eyes and stick their fingers in their ears and go la 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 la. And that goes from like the higher rates of COVID-19 among Black people and the environmental racism and like socioeconomic causes of that, to the murders of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, and so many Black trans women, and of course George Floyd, to the BLM uprisings and calls for divestment from policing. All of these things are sort of like the context in which this conversation is happening. So how does it suddenly feel to have the Black experience at large and your experience as Black Triple Crowners specifically, people as folks who walk on the land, who use the gear, who participate in outdoors communities as we're doing in this webinar? How does it feel to have that experience suddenly at like the front and center of all of these conversations? And to be clear, this webinar is not exempt from that. So thanks for being here again.
Well, for me, I think it's kind of odd. It's really odd. 2 years ago, when I completed the Triple Crown, personally, I was super excited. I was like, woo, you know, I did this thing. First African-American woman, I was excited about it. And it was like crickets, you know. Many publications and people actually said to me, this is not something that we would like to run with at this time, you know. And that wasn't just, you know, the main, you know, magazines. Actually, I actually had a very well-known African-American magazine tell me that exact same thing. And I was you know, I was like, okay, I'm not sure when you'd run with this story, but okay. You know, I had companies that I, you know, sent emails to who didn't respond at all. Shout out to ULA, who totally, you know, when I sent them an email, immediately sent me a backpack, no questions asked. And I'm so grateful for that, that they stepped up like that. But other people totally didn't have anything to say at all, or they diminished the experience by saying, you're possibly the first African-American, or maybe, and it's hard to believe that there's any other African American out there that has done the three trails and chose not to say anything. But that's how, you know, you just kind of diminish the accomplishment altogether. And so for me, it was like, okay, if that's where we are, I'm just going to go on with the rest of my life. And now all of a sudden, a month ago, I'm getting blown up with, you know, 200 follows on Instagram. And I wonder, you know, it's hard to balance, you know, because it's like, are you here to find out about me? Or are you here because of what I look like? And, you know, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to deal with that. And times I've been just removing myself from all of it because of that.
You know, I'm going to echo a lot of what Chardonnay said there. This has been a very strange time, and it's been a telling time. I've had, you know, people reach out to me in the last month or two more than ever. I mean, I completed the Triple Crown back in September of last year. I picked up way more followers in the last 2 months. I've been contacted by way more people in the last 2 months. So, I mean, it makes you feel all the feelings knowing that right now it seems like people are more interested in you because you're Black and because of what's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement and systematic racism than they are the things we actually accomplished.
Yeah.
You know, and where I know I can speak for myself, it seems like these days I'm seeing myself everywhere. And the only thing I've accomplished since September is, you know, going through the entire Tiger King series on Netflix, you know? And it's really, really strange that I'm seeing myself all over the place. I mean, first off, most of these places aren't putting money in my pocket. They're not putting gear on my back. But it's like they want us now to be tokens to push their agenda. And that's what it feels like at times. It feels like, you know, we're getting contacted. You want to feature us. You want to do things with us as your effort to show that, look, we're not white supremacists or we're not racist or we care about diversity, but not because of the people we actually are, just what we look like.
Yeah, it's strange and it's odd, and that's a real shame that particularly like what happened to both of you, but particularly you, Chardonnay. I just want to say that that's bullshit, if I may be the one to break the cursing seal. I'm really sorry that happened to you, and that it is so disorienting. So a lot of people that signed up for this call, from land managers to guiding organizations to outdoors groups to educators from early childhood to college to retailers and brands, trail volunteers, a lot of people are realizing these days that passive openness, or simply like having non-discrimination statements available on their websites, aren't enough to bring BIPOC, but particularly Black people into the outdoors. Given the lives that have been lost to systemic racism and the justifiable fear that BIPOC have when it comes to racialized safety, folks want to sort of know, like, what subtle or unsubtle actions or statements or events have you seen in people or groups that discourage you from engaging with trail cultures, whether that's online conversation to in-person events like the ones that ALDHA-West puts on, to actually getting out and through hiking. So what discourages engagement? What are the barriers there?
Oh.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I have one that is pretty fresh. It keeps me and probably other BIPOCs from engaging in the outdoors. Is a good example was today. Catabatic, one of the sponsors for this event, they, you know, put up a repost for this event. And, you know, the only thing in this entire post that I can see somebody may have a problem with is the word Black. And for some reason, you put Black in a post, BIPOC, you know, LGBTQ, anything like that, and hate just starts. Hate and ignorance fills the comments. And they reshared this post, and every comment on there had something negative. Why is it not about hiking in mountains? You need to stick to that. Why do we have to make it political? This is racist. And it's like, these are the things that keep us from going outdoors. These days, everybody who's never tried anything, you learn from going on the internet. You Google things, you go on Facebook, you go on Instagram. And if you went on Katabatic's site today and that was your first experience with the outdoors, you would see those type of things and be like, no, this isn't for me. Or even my own brand that sponsors me, Merrill, if you see their Facebook account and they say anything about African American or Black, the hate and the ignorance follows. Kenya and Michelle from Outdoor Journal Tour, anytime they're up there, the ignorance and the hate follows. And when that is what your first experiences into researching the outdoors are, it makes it to where you think this is a space that is not safe for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Same here. I mean, for me, in the last week and a half, I've been avoiding social media, just for that, because for some reason, a lot of people really got excited about this talk, and other people got angry, and I couldn't understand the anger when it says through hiking in the lead-in. We're talking about hiking and we're talking about our experiences, but for some reason that angered people, and it was sad to see some of the things that transpired on the internet and on the Facebook groups. Personally, from both sides, I think people get on the internet and they just start ranting, and they don't see people because they're just typing, and they don't realize that those things, they're people, who read that. And it frustrated me, and I wanted to say something, but I didn't know what to say. And I wanted to mostly, say to people of color, don't let that stuff be your obstacle in going outdoors. Some of the comments and the things that were said on the PCT page, it's like, come on. That's not my experience in the outdoors. So don't let that be the thing that keeps you from going. Don't let people put that fear in you. If you want to go, do it, because you have the right to be out there as much as anybody else, and don't let them put fear in you. You can go out there and do it. So all those comments, let it go. Hit me up. I will tell you how it is and how to protect yourself. But don't let that stuff stop you. And thank God for, Katabatic, ULA, all the West for putting this out there, because these things need to be heard. People need to know that that is not okay. It's not okay. And it's not the truth. They want you to think that's the way it is. They want you to be afraid. They want you to stay home. Don't let that stop you. Get out there and do your thing. Whether you're the only one or not, get out there and do your thing. Because if you get out there, somebody else will too.
Yeah, and I actually can't let this go. Chardonnay brought it up, but it is a huge barrier when a trail organization censors the BIPOC people, kicks them out and bans them from the page while facilitating the hate and the other things that they were taking. So, that is a huge barrier for everyone that was on that page and on that Facebook group. So sorry you had to go through that. That is not what the outdoor community is about. That's a bunch of ignorance. That's a bunch of hate. Shout out to everyone that's on the BIPOC, PCT Facebook group. I hope you guys can get the community and everything that you need. If not, you reach out to us and we'll tell you what the outdoor community really is about. But PCTA, we're upset with you right now.
It is what it is. So thank you. Thank you for speaking so openly and honestly about that. So just to sort of, we're getting close to time, so lots of questions still on my list, but I've got to pick and choose now. And I think this is sort of where I want to go. So many white people who registered want to make sure that both of you and any other BIPOC that decide to through hike or long distance hike feel held and cared for and safe. A lot of them ask questions that were some form of the following. What does allyship or accomplishship look like to you in outdoor spaces, whether that's on a long distance trail or just when you're getting out for a day hike?
A quick story for me to tell what it is. While I was on the AT, you know, I met an older hiker very briefly. Me and him seemed cool and friendly, and I didn't see him for a couple of days. While I was approaching a shelter a few days later, saw some hikers that I had been bouncing around with, and they asked me, did I meet this person? And I was like, yeah. And it was like, yeah, he was talking about how all you do is curse and you play your rap music loud in the shelters at night, which I don't do. I listen to audiobooks most of the time. You were talking about how you were a gangster and you were violent and, you know, just all the black male stereotypes. I asked them, what did they do? It's like, oh, we told them that's not the Ikuna we know, and you're just spreading a whole bunch of nonsense. So if that's your take on all that, you're not welcome here. And that's why he's not at the shelter when you got here. And that's what allyship is to me. Not you, you know, coming out and saying this, that, or the other because I'm there. You know, check people when you know they're messing up.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Anything?
For me, it's just support. I think it's support. I think it's treating me like a person, not babying me or like because of the color of my skin. You know, I don't understand when people are excited, you know, or excited to see a black person on the trail or excited to see a black person skiing. It's like, I don't know. I don't understand that because we're capable, we're resilient, we're strong. If you can, we can. It shouldn't be surprising. I don't know why that's shocking at all. So treat me like a person. If you see me on the trail, say hi. You know, if you're going on a hike, invite me. If you feel that works for you, do that. But don't treat me like I need to be treated with kid gloves or anything like that. I'm just a person like any other hiker on the trail. You know, if you have, you know, if you're a privileged person, you have multiple pieces of gear that you're just not going to use anymore. Allyship means donating that gear to someone else. You know, maybe I got gear from a guy who had an extra tent. You know, if you have extra gear that's been gently used, you know, make an effort to give that to someone who might need that help. You know, volunteer. ALDHA-West is always looking for volunteers. Always. You know, volunteer, come, share your experiences on the trail with those people who are new to the trail. You know, that's it. You know, you don't really have to do some grand thing. Be kind, you know, help people. I mean, if nothing else, that's something that is it's amazing experience to have on the trail when random people are kind to you, not because they have to, but because they want to help you on your journey, just because. That's it. That's the thing you need to do. It's very simple.
Simple, and I think there are a lot of people that don't want to mess it up, right? So they want to hear it from the source, and so thank you both for sharing in that way. Moving into sort of a wrap up, do you have any hopes for the future of thru hiking or the thru hiking community?
You know, I think that's one of those, you know, you hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. But I will say I'm encouraged by the amount of BIPOC people that have contacted me during this whole pandemic about their plans to hike the AT or the CDT or the PCT. I think the long distance trails are going to look a lot different once we come out of this than they did prior. you know, so if you're hiking pretty soon and you're used to, you know, what you saw on one trail, this may be a completely different experience, but don't shut it off. This is a chance to learn from a lot of people who you may not normally interact with on an everyday basis. So, you know, when you meet these people out on these trails, learn from them, pick their brains, you know, invite them into your trail families. As Chardonnay say, treat them like they're people. And you'll be surprised at the bonding that you're going to do. So I am encouraged by the amount of diversity that looks like is going to be on the trails next year. But as far as the organizations and the brands around it, I still think they have work to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I hope, and for me, I just hope that people take a moment and take a look in the mirror. You know, it's all about being kind to one another and choosing how you choose to speak to people and how you choose to interact with people. And I am completely behind amplifying Black voices. But I also understand that for us to have this conversation, the key word is conversation. You know, I'll talk, you listen, you talk, I'll listen. Let's talk and converse. You know, we need to hear each other. And if we're not hearing each other and everybody's yelling, we're not going to move forward. So let's all have a actual conversation about it, you know, without antagonizing each other and, you know, pushing your side over the others. Nobody's got a side. We're all in this together. And if we try to do that together, we can move forward. And hopefully the organizations, the companies, they'll all work together so that we can all enjoy the outdoors together.
Yeah. Thank you both so much for being here and for taking the time and for sharing so openly and honestly. I really appreciate it. And I know so many folks out there watching not only now, but folks who plan to watch in the future are super excited to hear what you have to say and to reflect on everything that's been said here today. So thank you both so much again for joining us. Couple of things to share that I am, sorry, technical difficulties. Just want to have some resources up on the screen for folks about diversity in the outdoors. There's some outdoor specific ones up top. So for example, the ever relevant Black Faces, White Spaces by Dr. Carolyn Finney. Traced by Laurette Savoy is more of a memoir, really lovely read. Melanin Base Camp has an Instagram, a Facebook, and also a website. They post some really amazing posts just sort of about what it's like to be people of BIPOC in the outdoor space. It tends to focus a little bit more on extreme sports like skydiving, but a lot of relevant pieces in there. Rahawa Halley does a lot of writing on, specifically has written a lot for Outside, talked about her time on the AT, and she has a book forthcoming called In Open Countries, supposed to be out next year, early next year. And if you are a BIPOC and you're looking for a lovely book written by a BIPOC on how to hike long distance trails, Liz Thomas has written a book called Long Trails, Mastering the Art of the Thru Hike. That I definitely recommend. Disclosure, I contributed, so maybe a little biased, but a lot of people have gotten a lot of use out of it. For more general anti-racism resources, How We Fight White Supremacy is specifically written by BIPOC for a BIPOC, whereas Me and White Supremacy is written by a BIPOC woman, but is more meant for white people specifically, but all folks to sort of work through their relationship with the white supremacist systems that we live under. White Fragility is a really good one if this is new, all new for you, by Robin DiAngelo. It's specifically written for white people and addressing white people. And then for looking for ways where that we can sort of, that the speakers talked about sort of at the end, to sort of like how we create the world that we would like to create. Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown is just a really, really good resource in that regard. So I hope that this has given you enough time to take that screenshot to be able to see what's going on there. You can follow both of our speakers. Chardonnay, you can find her on Instagram at LTW or at wanderingchardonnay.com. Her blog is a lot of fun to read, definitely recommend it. And then Willie, you can find him at Ikuna Hikes on Instagram. Just want to say one last thank you to our sponsors for this evening, Canuck Outdoors, Mountain Laurel Designs, Buff, and Katabatic Gear. Just really appreciate you knowing the importance of this conversation even before it happened. And I hope that you are stoked to have supported it, because I'm stoked that you've supported it. Thank everyone so much for coming here, for attending, for being a part of this conversation. Even if you are just being a part of it, if you're not here in the moment, thank you for taking the time to watch it afterwards. Again, ALDHA-West put this on. Come join Chardonnay and I on the board, potentially. Donate, become a member. All of that is at www.aldhawest.org. Any questions that you have after this for us as an organization can be sent to secretary@aldhawest.org. Really appreciate all of your time. Appreciate, again, our lovely speakers' time. I hope that all of you have an excellent evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.